Hey guys, we've got about 12 people online, so if you give us just a few minutes, we'll start at about in a minute, just a minute or two. Okay?
Hello, are we ready?
Yes, I was just about to introduce you, so
Oh, okay. All right, I was not sure. I was away, so
no worries. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to today's Tech Talk at INT. Today's topic will be IVAP 2.6, and Oog was going to give us a nice overview of all the new release features, highlights, improvements, show some dashboards, and things like that. As usual, the Q&A sort of I don't know, interface is the Q&A section. Just ask questions. I'll interrupt if it makes sense, or if it's something I can hold to the end, I'll go ahead and do that. Feel free to put it in. Feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, like I said, and then I'll either break into Oog if it makes sense for that specific dashboard, or I'll save them to the end. It sort of just depends. I think that's it. I think you all know Oog, so I don't have to introduce him. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away.
okay.
Oh, did you stop sharing your screen? Oh no, I think we've lost Oog. 1 minute. Uh, I guess technical difficulties. Give us a minute. I'm going to see if Oog can log back on. Hey guys, so Uke's having, I think, an internet issue, so if you'll bear with us for a few more minutes, he's checking.
You can hear me? Yeah, you can. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you now.
It locked. It went away. I did not touch it, so I don't know why it just closed it. So okay.
We can see your screen, Hugues.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know where we stopped. Where was it? When was it cut?
You said okay, and then you ended. So
That's it?
you start from the beginning, from the top.
I have no idea what happened. I'm sorry about that. So it does still people listening to the talk?
Yes, they're super angry, so you have to be really entertaining.
Yeah. All right. I will entertain. So okay, quickly. So next, IVAP. So what I wanted to say at the beginning is that you all know IVAP by now. We talk every day about it, so I'm sure you're all aware, and also you find it maybe a bit boring to listen again to an IVAP presentation. So I want to be quick on the slides and just show you demos of what's new into it. But for people who are not sure what is IVAP, so just to make sure that if you go to the website for INT.com, you will see that we say that IVAP is the next generation upstream data visualization platform. It's what we want. So it's so highly customizable, and you can basically you can use it into a company, to an organization to visualize and interpret your oil and gas data. So we have so it's a collaboration platform. As you know, the slides, it's between you can visualize your data, but you can also integrate your data, and you can also extend the application, the platform, to do more in-house customization. So this is the ecosystem, you know that. The examples are from the marketing presentation, but maybe some of the people in INT are not sure what IVAP does. So it's basically you use it to visualize seismic, well data, any data that you record for oil and gas. So it could be also production data, and you look at this data and there's pretty charts, but these pretty charts are helpful for the people who monitor or interpret the data or present to the management the data. So again, here you see several types of displays. You also can see on the map. And what we did also, we started to do last year with OSDU is to connect IVAP to external machine learning, so any processing system outside of IVAP. Like for example, we did an integration with Jupyter and SageMaker last year. It's another type of data. Here you see we can connect to PPDM. PPDM is the largest database used in the oil and gas. It basically contains tons of information, and many companies use it. So we can connect to it and we can visualize data from the PPDM database. Here is the seismic. We did a lot for 2.6. One thing is the VDS format from Blueware, which we integrated. Also here application with the customers. So Centro is Weatherford, Sasholi, they use it as a portal. They go there, and from there they look at all their data into the company. So IVAP release. So first, when did we release? So I put here the most recent release, 2.4 in October 19, 2.5 in March 2020, 2.6 in August 14, 2020. So the 2.6.0 was delivered in in mid-August. Okay. After that, we did some patch release. So I put here, look at we can look at 240 in October 21 and 19. We had about a number of tasks into that release, which was about between 300 and 400. Then for 2.5, we had almost 600 tasks associated to it. And for 2.6, we jumped to about almost 1,000 tasks, 980 something at the total. So you see that the amount of tasks implemented for IVAP is increasing release after release here. So the problem is also that it takes about 5 months between two minor releases. Between 2.4 and 2.5, it took 5 months to do that. Between 2.5 and going to 2.6, it took another 5 months. So what we want to do for a coming release is to try to reduce the interval to about 2 months. So which means that 2.7.0 will be scheduled around mid to end October 2020. Also, the number of tasks should be largely reduced. Another point is also that to know that the team is increasing, so we had more people as well joining the team for the development. That's also one of the reasons why the number of tasks is so high. So what's new in 2.6? A lot of things, actually, you will see. So this is a one slide, a very busy slides. You see that we did release data node availability check, diagnostics URL for cluster. All of that. This slide is just for the backend. We support ActiveMQ cluster for high availability. We integrated with Kibana. We did new services. We did also a lot of work for the faults. Here we also added new connector. OpenEarth connector, which is not really used right now, but we added another one called EIA connector, which I will demonstrate. We also did an improvement for SQL and BIM connectors. Nice. A bit of improvement for the SDK backend. You see an improvement for the CRS conversion API support for well-known text. Wellbot document API, seismic ODS support. So let's go to the next one. So integration to Kibana. So that's something I did not show before. So it was done in previous before 2.6, but we never really advertised for it. So let me go through what is Kibana. So that was integrated on the backend side. So it's ELK stack architecture. So for Elastic, Search, Logstash, and Kibana. So it's used on the backend to monitor the logs and also to monitor the infrastructure. So here is an example of the ELK stack. So let's have a look at it. So I'll go here. Where's my okay? This one. This is our implementation inside the INT for ELK. So I'll go here and go to the Discover. And what it shows it here is the log and the monitoring of the logs for dev here. Very useful. You can go to one, you can extend it. So I guess I'm not an expert at all on this. So that's if you want more information on this, you go to see you talk to Carl and Shashi. Very interesting. And another one is so this is a log monitoring. Another one is also to monitor the infrastructure. So let's go to the host overview. And this also is describing the monitoring of this infrastructure. Here is for dev. So the advantage with this Kibana integration is that you can basically add as many environments that you want to monitor at the same time. So right now it's not on pub, but I think Carl is planning to add the Kibana to monitor pub as well. Okay. So that was the first. Yep, let's go next. Let's go back to the presentation now. And Another part for the backend is we did a connector for EIA. So what is EIA? I'm sure you wonder. So EIA is the U.S. Energy Information Administration. So it's on the web. It's public information managed by the U.S. government, and they have an API using open data, they call it. And basically, you can connect to this. You can register to open data and have access to all these table that they use into on the website. So very rich. It's very rich information. So you see here, for example, you go on the website, you go to petroleum, or you go to petroleum and other liquids. You see a lot of data here, and basically you have access to all this data, and the data are real time or pseudo real time because they are updated monthly, yearly, daily. A lot of information is updated on a regular basis. So this is a lot of tables. So it was a good opportunity for us maybe to diversify a bit IVAP and show some information coming from that connector. An example of it. So how do we do it in IVAP? So first in IVAP we created we can add a connector for AI like this one. You see the properties. This is a property, so you need to have the URL and logging for open data. Then we can put it into a project. So here I go to on the admin, I search for EIA. This is EIA. I'm looking at the data. So you can. This is a EIA connector, and I can browse my data by category. You see here all the categories of data. All of that's coming from open data. I can go to, for example, crude oil import, and all of this is you have folders and you have files already available. You can go to this folder here, and then you see I can search for data, get some tables from crude oil import from Europe, for example, here, and I can add that to my project. On the client side, how does it look? On the client side, basically here my project here a demo where I did put some data, and what I put here is the monthly consumptions in the US per source. So from the consumption for solar consumption, geothermal, hydroelectric, biomass, nuclear, coal, natural gas, petroleum consumption, and total fossil. And you see they all have this kind of wiggle because this is a monthly production. So usually you have the consumption varies between the time of the year. In winter, you will consume more because you need to heat more. You will consume more coal and electrical, and because you need to heat your houses. So you see the change between winter and summer. Basically, this is what shows you the wiggles here. Another example connecting to another EIA set of data. In this one, on this one, what I did is I wanted to show the monthly import of crude oil to the US, and this is per type of oil. So you see here on the top is a chart with all the crude oil type. And this is so the import, which is in thousands of barrels here. And I put some tracking on the right side. You see the gauge showing you the values for each of them of the type of crude oil here. And the bottom you have a detail for each of the type of oil: heavy, light, heavy sweet, light sour, and medium. So that was for this new connector called EIA. So it's huge amount of data. So it's time consuming, but you can build a lot of dashboard for all kind of energy data. So it's very, very interesting. And also there is a lot of information. So we could build user stories basically by looking at what the US Energy is saying into their website. So another thing is the faults. The backend did a lot of improvement. So one is for the fault edition on AWS, GCP, and Azure. I might demonstrate it right away, this one here. So what I have a predefined dashboard here. What was done by the team in Pau was to ability to edit faults into the 2D seismic, and the fault edited will be saved on the cloud. So an example here, let's say I will create a new fault that you do it into the 2D here. So let's go. So yes, let's go here. So I can see here that there is something going on at this location on the seismic. You see the seismic wavelet is very disturbed here. So I want to put a fault around here. So I will go here. I will create a new fault. I will call it F3, and I will start my picking like this. I will jump into the cross line here and continue my picking. And also I want to see it in 3D, so let's make sure that the fault is visible into the 3D. Okay, let's continue. Up. I just put some points so we can hopefully see it. And you also notice that the cursor is tracking the position in the 3D as well. There is the fault. This is gone here, but I just added this point anyway. So I'm finishing the picking here. I close this, so the picking is finished. In the 3D environment, I hope to be able to display it. Yeah, so this is my fault that I just created here, the vertical fault. And I can select it. You see another one that I created, and I can select this fault here. So that's a fault editing here. We do have a lot of improvement coming with 2.7 on it, because that's the initial version, and there is always some stuff to fix when we start using it. So let's go back to the presentation. So on the admin side here, so before to jump here, you can read, you can see here with the rest. I'm not demonstrating, a lot of things here are not demonstrated. So just go to the most, maybe the most easy to show examples. So here on the admin side, we did a support for the SQL queries. So what we wanted to do with that is, for example, when you connect to PPDM database, you could use a query, an SQL, to just access some of the tables from that database and show them into IVAP. So doing this directly from the interface without having to ask the developer to do anything. So this is possible. So let me show you. So to do that, well, there was quite some work on collaboration between the admin team and the backend team. So let's have a look at what it means. So I'll go to the admin here, and I go to my queries. I added some queries here that I did for the demo, very basic queries. Let's open this one, the well query. So we do have an internal PPDM database which is using TPOT data. So I put a query here asking for all the well list, but making sure I'm filter out some of the names which are not useful. So this is the query for well. If we go to IVAP now, let's have a look. Okay, so here is my project, which I call the query. And in that project, I do have the TPOP information. And if I go, you see here this category is query. This is a query which are created directly from that list here. So one important thing is that when you do the queries, you have to make sure once the query is created, like this one, is to make sure which groups can see that query. So here I have a specific training group, so I put it only visible to the training group. And when you go to the connector, you need to make sure that the connector is using that query. So I go to the PPDM connector, I go to queries here, and you can see the list of queries which I made available to this connector PPDM 3.8. Also into the project, if I look at the query project which created here, we can look at what queries are used into that project, and you will see, so in that project we have all these queries here. So if the queries are successful, you will see it into IVAP. If the query has a problem, there is no debugger into the admin. So if the query is badly written or there is a bug in the SQL, then basically the table might not show up on the client side. So here, when I go back here, this is my query with all the well name here, the corresponding UWI. I put the geographic province and some information. If I go to the properties here, I filtered out some of the columns. Okay, so you see here all the columns coming from the table. I did filter down into the display here. That's one of the things that we added in IVAP for 2.5 was to be able to save and restore the column filters for the table. It's very useful in that case here because usually the queries, this table have a lot of columns. On the right side here, I put tubular information. I also have tubular information for a specific UWI. Put some log passes, some while logs here, all of that, and some server information here for this data. So that's PPDM. Very useful, again, we'll use it. So let's go another one. So on the admin, you see we did work for the connectors, like we had to make sure that the AI connector was available on the admin side and usable, etc. Just quickly, other examples of what was done on the admin is maybe the schematic element catalog. So that's available. I have to make sure that it will be on dev, on pub. Right now it's just on dev, but just have to import it on pub. So here you see from the dictionary, you will see now the schematic element catalog, which lists all the schematics from basically the schematic used into the GeoToolkit as well. So what we wanted to do with that is we saw it with customers that they do have don't have always the same names for their schematic elements, and so we always have to do a mapping table between what the customer has and what we have. And it's so basically by putting it into the admin, we want to make sure that the user can basically import its own elements and also rename them, give whatever name that they want for the specific elements. So we don't have to do any code to map this information anymore. So right now it's only on the admin, and the client is not consuming it yet. So you will not see this available on the client side. The client side is still using what is into the toolkit today. All right. Next, the front end. So the front end, there is also quite some stuff added for this release, and I will just highlight some of them, not all of them. Huh? So first, the client SDK, which was released. So I just put one information here from Dimitri. So you go back to Dimitri, and Dimitri did a presentation some time ago about. So I will not present anything about the SDK here, but so. Just to be sure that what do we do with that SDK? So for the 2.6, we can write new widget. We can provide persistence for the new widget. We can use existing projects data structure. We can repackage our IVAP application. You can extend the data model to new data type. You can create a data connector, you can change authentication, you can develop plugins in TypeScript or in JavaScript, and you can also develop plugins using ES5 or ES6 syntax. Right now, we only use ES5 in the current IVAP. The homepage. All right, so homepage, we did change it a little bit. Maybe you did not. I'm not sure if everyone noticed it, but if you go back to the homepage today, what you will see is that at the top here, you will have the most recent projects which have been opened. And if you want to go and below, you will see so your dashboard. So the difference before we had these big buttons for the map, you don't see them here. And there is a reason, because we removed it from here. The map is now available from the navigation bar. So the map. So let's have a look at an improvement for the map page. So as I said, now we have a page here for the map. But I will go to show you what was done with it. I'll go to OSDU, because there for the map we did a lot of improvement for the map as part of the OSDU. So here this is OSDU, which is, you see, it's just IVAP using based on 2.6. And so we click on the map here on OSDU. We did several improvements. We did, like, for example, you click on one object into the map. And what you can do by using the icon on the right side for information, you can click on an object and get metadata for that object. And this is possible for seismic, for any object which has metadata. Come on, doesn't show. Another thing is that for OSDU, we did add the search. So for 2.6, it has been improved a little bit. You see, you can search for wells, seismic, horizons, and faults. And I would hope that it, okay, all right. So you see here, when I click the metadata for metadata, I get some information here coming from the backend. So that was an improvement for the map. Let's have a look at more other things. Data tree. All right, let's have a look at the data tree. You see, we have new objects in the data tree. So let's go here. The data tree today in IVAP, we are supporting more information like the faults, which are new. We did the fault editing, now, so we can display existing fault. We have horizons, and we also have the grid surface, which, similar to horizon, the grid surface are defined in UTM coordinates. In IVAP, when we say horizon, the seismic horizons are in IGK. So this is a kind of new information that are available from the tree in IVAP. And let's go to the next one, which is tagging. So tagging is a big thing that you might have heard about it, but you might wonder what tagging means. So I put a definition here. So we did the tagging for one reason. The problem was when we load a template or when we load the projects, we don't always know. The system doesn't know what so you load a template, the system doesn't know which data, does not always know which data to use for that template. So you end up in situations where you load a template and it's blank because you have to manually find which data to connect to that template. So what we wanted is to try to make sure that IVAP is capable of understanding what data to be used in a specific template, in a specific dashboard. And so this is used. There is two main situations where this is very useful. Is when you load a dashboard or a template, because if we have tagging, we can find directly a default data set to be put into that template, into that any widget. And also when we switch parents. So for example, you have a dashboard with multiple data sets displayed from one well into the dashboard. But when you switch well, the system has to figure out what to do now. You switch well, so the dashboard has to find the data set corresponding to this switching action. So that was quite complex. So we ended up creating a tagging logic, which is basically very useful for that. Example. All right, so you have a first example here is with the tagging is, in that case here, the tagging is on, and you can see it from the toolbar at the top, tagging visible. You can hide the tagging if you don't want to see it, and you can show it. These tags so far are defined at the domain level. So, and they are defined using the rules which are available, which you have to define to the admin. So it's not yet as good enough for us. We would like in the future to make it more, maybe more flexible, but at least right now it allows me to find when I switch well, will be able, my system will be able to understand, if you want. Be able to understand my my switch. Huh. All right. What happened to the Peugeot? Okay, you can see here everything was ungrouped. So when I go back to this one here, I can basically everything will update based on the using the tagging. If I had more data sets, it will use the one with the tag automatically. So very useful to use. But still a bit this is the first version, so there is still an issue with the tagging. So this is why we don't really make it that public, that we don't do a big announcement about it, because it's still still need a little bit of work. Another example of tagging is here in the case of drilling data. In that case here, the tagging is off. We don't want to use it, because what we want to do here is to switch data set and all within the same well. So we don't switch parent, we just switch data sets. And when I do the click on the tree, it will update all the widget based on that click here. So in that kind of situations, I don't really want to use the tagging. The tagging is very useful when I'm switching wells or when I'm restoring a first version of when I'm restoring a template. But when I'm in a situation here like in drilling, where we just want to scan data set after data sets to look at and do some quality control, for example, I don't really need to use it. So it's off in that dashboard. I hope I did not lose you. You can hear me, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, okay, good. So next is a photo editing, you have seen it. Another one is the 3D widget. So the 3D widget, we did, I did the synchronization between the 2D seismic and the 3D. You have seen it in the photo editing, but also we added a few more things. So let's have a closer look to it. So go back here. So we have the faults. And we have also into the fault, we have the notion of fault sets. So when the faults on the backend are stored as one unique file with all the faults inside, which is the case here. So we call it, we generate a fault set in that case. You could also have independent faults which are not in fault set, but here we show them from the fault set. So if I look at the properties now, I can go to the fault surface, and we can manage the transparency on the fault. And just fault as the point used for the fault, and the line which defines the pillar along the fault. So the fault line, basically. So you can see I can hide them or I can show them. So this kind of this is a kind of information that we added here, and also for the horizons. Now we have the 2D grid. Before we did not have much properties for the 2D grid. So we added the color map the gradient of the fixed color. Coming for next release is also be able to edit per object here, edit the properties. Right now it's global, means that it applies to all the grids, and the same for fault. All the settings here apply to all the faults. And the color for the fault is generated automatically. It's random. So in the next release, you will have ability to basically to select which color you want to use for a specific. Okay. 2D seismic. Let's have a close look at the 2D seismic. We saw the fault editing, but we also did a little bit more on the 2D seismic. So let's go here to 2D seismic. If I'm here and look at the header informations, now we get this dialog with all the metadata for the Segway file behind here. So very useful for the geophysicist. Three tabs here for the attributes, FCD header, and the binary header. Another thing that you noticed is the interactivity between the two. When I move my cursor in 2D, you can see the cursor position in 3D. And into the 2D seismic, you can do things like from the toolkit, we added the ability to move the gradient into the view, and it rotates vertical or horizontal when depending where you position it. And also we had before a shortcut button to the toolbar, which was very confusing. So this is gone, and now you see here some shortcut for the 2D seismic at the bottom. You can switch from inline to or crossline to inline. Here you can switch here the inline in the condition here, and I can put a step here, and I also can go directly to a specific one, and we can also manage the scale. So this is new, and then right, so other things we did on the 2.6 is so the correlation side, there is a lot of small improvements, and on the well log widget we did the reverse option for the gradient, the support line, etc., etc. And a lot of little improvements on the line chart, bar chart, and time series. So let's go to the bar chart, line chart quickly. So here is I will create, for example, a time series here, show you little improvements in it. So what we have here is that we can now set. We have three options in the line chart in the time series here. You can go single or multiple mode, and you can go a single parent or multiple parent. So it's in the coming release we will make this one. There's two buttons, basically one because we want three. You will have three modes for that charts, and we are extending that mode also for line chart and well log as well. So single series means I'm looking at data from one data set only, and I can go for multi-series here, that I will be looking at data from multiple data sets within the same parent, or I can go also to multi-parent. In that case, I can select data from another parent and put it into the same display. This kind of logics, we want to make sure it's available for the major displays, major widgets. So this is basically what I wanted to show for this release. It's 12:45, so I think you that's a good 45 minutes. So I'm ending my presentation here. If you have any questions.
Okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, just put those in the Q&A. And then I don't have any just yet, so
Okay, no problem.
I did have a comment from the audience that your presentation was very good, very engaging. So we do appreciate the sort of flow of it and how good it was. So
Okay, very good.
well, give us like 1 minute in case people need to.
Yeah, we need to wait. People are warming up their fingers, and I'm sure they're gonna type questions very soon.
Okay, yeah, all right. No, but yes, so 2.7 coming in 1 month, hopefully, if we stay on target. 1 month, 1 month and a half, we should have a 2.7 release with plenty of new things. Okay.
Okay, someone said, can you explain the multiple parent again and to tag?
Okay. Yeah, I did not put the right dashboard for that. That's why I did not. I was not too much into it. But let's go to the. I can explain. Yeah, a little bit more. So this is a line chart here. So in that line chart, I'm displaying information from a specific log here. And so this is a single, you see the number 1 here. So this is a single mod. And let's say I would like to display information from this table here into the same chart. Today, all the widget in IVAP reacts to the click. You know, when you click on a parent, it updates the widgets automatically. So the problem is that in that case, when I click, my data is gone here because it's expecting something from this other data set. So if I want, for example, to add the information from this other table here, I will go to the multi-mode here. And I will go to the production table. I will add it. And I will put the date on the x-axis. And I will put oil in this. So now I do have date versus oil coming from this other data set. I will change the color because it might not be that obvious. Come on. It's this one here. So now I do have a dashboard, a widget here which has data from two data sets. And the thing is that now if I want to switch, I want to switch to another well. This one. So I want to switch to this one. Now it will find, you see, it can find data from production and from the two tables. So one is well log and one is a table spreadsheet. So the data come from the two sets within the same parent. So this is a multi-mode. Within the same parent, I do have data from multiple data sets. One is a log and one is a table. Now, if I want to, so this is very useful because when I switch, it can always make sure that everything is conform. And also we use tagging. So if I had multiple tables, I will only be looking at the table with the tag production because it's what I did here. Now, if I still wanted to add more to that chart, I would like to show data from another well. So it's another parent. In that case, what I don't want to switch when I'm switching parent like this. I don't want my chart to update because I want to add information from another well. So in that case, I will go and use multi-parent. And what you will see that in that case here, when I click here, it does not update the chart, you see? And I can go to that other data set and add data from that data set. So now you see the data here are coming from this well, and the rest here is coming from this other well, the well 349. So this is a mode multi-parent here. So the interest is now when you are in multi-parent, the charts will not update when you switch parent. So you can add information from any parent for any wells into the same chart people will do that for comparison. That's very useful if you want to compare informations. But when you do that, means it will not update when you switch. So you will have to, you don't have the update when you switch parent anymore. You have to do it yourself. Understood?
Let me double check. I have a couple of other questions. So if the person who asked the tagging question can let us know if that answers it. I'll go through the other ones. So the next question is, are there any current customers using the EIA connector right now?
No, it's brand new.
Okay.
It's brand new. The only requirement from EIA is that when you use it, you have to say it's EIA data. So, for example, if we have a dashboard with EIA, it's good to say it into the dashboard that it's EIA.
Gotcha.
Just, yeah.
And then the other one said, which release will the consumption by the front-end client of the back-end schematic components dictionary be effective? Like when will that?
Yeah, it's lower priority, so it's not in the coming 2.7 so far. So after 2.7, we will have 2.8. So if we have 2.7 mid-October, you could November, December, you can expect 2.8 before the end of the year. Hopefully before the end of the year. So hopefully by 2.8 we will have it.
Okay. And then the other, so on the EIA connector question, they asked, well, it's Curtis. I'll just Curtis has a lot of questions today. He said, is it the same as WhatSML? And then he retracted it, so he hates me. So
no.
More?
Yeah. No, it's table that you get from EIA. It's not WithSML. It's not WithSML.
Okay, perfect. And then Ivan asks how to create a new dashboard from scratch.
From scratch? Oh, very easy. So you go here on the right click here on the top button dashboard here from the toolbar. I will clear my dashboard. Do you want to proceed? I say yes. Bingo. So now my dashboard is empty. Okay. So depending on what I want to do, maybe just one widget, or maybe you can split your view as you wish. For example, here I want to put a map. I will go into that empty space. When you are into an empty space, your toolbar updates with the list of widgets available for you. So I'll put this one here, and this because my data are geopositions, it can show me where the data are. So this is the first widget here, and maybe I want to put some. I want to show the data into the line chart. So I click on this other space here, and I'll select line chart, for example, which is this one, multi-series line chart. I'll put it here, and I'll go to the first well here, and I'll say, okay, give me the logs here. I take the gas, I put it on the y-axis, and I'm asking to use the index for the x-axis, and I call it gas. Let's do it. Bingo. I can use another one to the x-axis. I call it oil. So that's a line chart. So then, if you, what would be good is that group. I make sure that my widgets are grouped together. So because what I would like here is that if I click on one well, like this, it will update. It will update my widget on the right side. In order to do that, I need to make sure that my widgets are grouped. Well, now all the widgets are grouped. So when I switch, it listens to the one. So 35, 34. I think 31. Yeah, 34. I need to look at my interval for this one. All right, so the interval was not set. So I can go to any of the wells here, like this one. Bingo. And again, I need to make sure that the data are loaded. Proper interval. That's because it's time data, and we use 1 day by default for time-based data. So you see here, I can switch on the map from one to another. All of that because it's grouped together. If you ungroup, so the advantage of the group is that you can create, let's say, 2 groups of data, one side by side, so you can compare. That's useful to be able to group separately widgets together. For example, here, and I put another plot here. And so what you see is, I will ungroup it. So this one is in a different group. So I can go here and I can switch data set, and I can compare this data set with this one if I want. Right. So that's the advantage of having support for groups here. So that's here. This one is listening to 348, and this one is showing data from 531. So you can imagine you have two well logs side by side from 2 different wells, and you can maybe keep one on a specific well and scan the other wells on the other log widget. That's why this is why we have the grouping, basically, to be able to do this kind of operation easily. All right. So you notice that I was able to split. While clicking at the top right corner of the widget, you can click to create a new empty space where you can put any of the available widgets. I can also put a table if I wanted, and put my data here. And you see that it's cursor tracking between the widgets. All right. But did I answer the question?
I think so. And I went ahead and put out a last call for any questions. So I think that answers all the ones that I have in the Q&A section and also in the Slack channel. So if you guys have any other questions, I know you guys can access Hugues directly, or email us and we'll ask them too. So anyway, thank you so much, Hugues, for the presentation today. It was very helpful to kind of see. So,
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Plan for you next week, right? Just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, guys, very much.
Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye. Thank you. Bye.